Hello and good evening, everybody. It's election night in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and it looks like, at least for now, there's going to be a selection for sheriff and one seat on Spartanburg's county council. And Amy, it looks like we've reached the point where we're about to call these races.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been watching the returns come in, but we are now up to 111 of 115 precincts in, pretty much done. And take a look at what's happened with this sheriff's race in Spartanburg County. Bill Ryan now commanding 73.92% of that vote, according to the latest numbers I've got. And Rusty Clevenger getting just around 26% of the vote. So that is a big difference. It is a runaway race, and Bill Ryan could potentially be our next sheriff if there's no write-in in the fall.
It looks that way. It looks like Rusty Clevenger got about the same number of votes he got the first time around, and Bill Ryan picked up all the others. Look at this. Lauren Miller standing by right now, and it looks to me, standing just off to her left, is the possible next sheriff of Spartanburg County. I think you're with Bill Ryan, Lauren.
Yeah, guys, exactly. We're here at his watch party. As you can hear, there's a lot of people here. Sheriff-elect Bill Ryan standing right next to me. Congratulations tonight.
Thank you very much.
What was your reaction when you found out shortly after the polls closed that Rusty Clevenger, he conceded? What was your reaction to that?
You know, it was just kind of a surreal moment, you know, when a seed gets planted in you over 28, 29 years ago, and you've walked this long and kind of waited and been patient and allowed things to kind of come to you versus you trying to force things. And to have something happen like this tonight, you know, I have to thank the voters. I mean, unbelievable. You know, I think it was very clear what the voters said tonight. They're looking for a change. They want a change in Spartanburg County. I've said that the entire campaign. You know, I am the change candidate moving forward. We have great plans for this county, and, you know, my goal ultimately is for us to become the beacon for whatever sheriff's office in the state aims to be.
When you were standing up here on the podium, you gave quite an emotional speech. Talk to us a little bit about that. What was kind of going through your head? You talked about how this was a dream for 28 years.
Yeah, you know, there's so many things that go along with that, but a lot of people don't realize, you know, 6 years ago, in just a couple weeks, I went down of a serious medical condition. They didn't expect me to live. I had about a 2 to 3% chance of surviving what I went through. And, you know, one of my doctors came in and made it very, very clear to me. They said, you know, we don't know why you're here, but God has a really special plan for you in his life, or in your life. And now we're here, and they said, you know, we didn't save you. God saved you. We just put you back together. There's no way in that moment that I could have thought 6 years from now that I'd be sheriff-elect for Spartanburg County. And it's, you know, I tell young people when they see this, when they see where I'm at, never stop dreaming. Never stop dreaming. If you have a dream and something's planted there, you know, be careful with the decisions that you make in life and make all the right choices in life, because a lot of that has to do with how I've been able to get where I'm at tonight. And just really, it's going to take some time for the reality to set in, because it's not set in yet. It really and truly hasn't. I'm the same person I was when I got here, but I will always remain that person. I'm always going to remain humble. I'm not concerned with titles. I'm not concerned with positions. I'm concerned with making Spartanburg County the best county in the state, not just the office, the county as a whole. Quality of life within a county starts at the sheriff's office level. A lot of people don't realize that. I take that very, very, very seriously, and I want people to understand that I'm going to work every day as hard as I can to ensure that this is the best county. Spartanburg County has become a destination for people across this country. Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office needs to be a destination also for young men and women who want to begin a career in law enforcement.
Understood. For our voters, what are some top priorities you plan to tackle?
Oh, there's a lot of things, you know, right out of the gate, but a lot of the things that they talk to me about is they want to see law enforcement back involved in the community. Obviously, that's a big one. Too, they're concerned about the growth. They're concerned about all the traffic and the things that they're seeing, the fatality rates that we're seeing in Spartanburg County. That's strange to me, because when I worked at the sheriff's office, that was never a focus in that time. People are concerned about the drugs that are out here, and especially I keep hearing about the drug houses knocking on doors, but they're also very concerned about response times. They're worried about how long it takes us to get the call sometimes, and that's all about the rebuild and starting to bring those officers in. And, you know, that rebuild starts right now. There's men and women out there that are looking at getting into law enforcement. We have 3 colleges right here in Spartanburg, SMC, Spartanburg Community College, and USC Upstate, that have great criminal justice programs. This needs to be where they're aiming at, especially if they're from here. I want them to understand, come be part of something special. It's a new day, and I want them to be part of something special. I want them to come. There's no reason to wait to November to apply. Apply right now, because you get in the queue and let's get in the system and let's change Spartanburg County together.
And obviously we have to wait for the special election in November. What is your plan moving forward after tonight?
We'll be starting to have a lot of meetings because I have a lot of plans, a lot of things that I want to see through, especially structurally with how the sheriff's office works. There's people I'm going to have to meet with, from county council to Cole Alverson, and that's going to be taking place now. I'm not going to wait until it's time to get into office in November. I'm going to start that process right now, having those meetings, having that stuff in place, so when we hit the ground, I guess on November the 5th, we're going to hit the ground running, ready to roll.
Understood. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations after the night.
I appreciate
Thank you so much. You as well. Thank you. As you heard, guys, he really plans to do a lot with the community, being more engaged, building some more trust. We'll plan to talk to some more people around here. We actually saw some sheriff candidates around here talking with Bill as well. So I'll hand it back to you guys. Live here in Spartanburg County, Lauren Miller, 7 News.
Wow, Lauren, thank you. Great interview.
Yes.
Bill Ryan, as you know, Amy, for a long time was the public information officer for Troop 3. That's basically the upstate part of the Highway Patrol, which means he spent a lot of time answering questions on camera, and you can see he's very comfortable with that.
He is, and it's good to have someone in a role like that is willing to communicate, because the community clearly has wanted some change, and they want someone who's going to talk to them about what's going on. They want transparency. Talking is part of the transparency process, for sure.
So my graphics didn't update over here, so let's pull this up for you. These are the numbers, the latest ones we have from Spartanburg County, from the elections office here. So we were talking about that sheriff's race. This is the Republican primary for sheriff. So you heard referred to as sheriff-elect. Technically, it is possible that's not the case. There could be a write-in in November, a countywide write-in. It's extremely unlikely that a write-in candidate would win there, but it's technically possible. The reason I pull these numbers up is, very quickly, I do want to show you, if you look at this line over here for Rusty Clevenger, he's got about 6,300 votes with a couple of more precincts. I'll highlight there. A couple more precincts to come in. That's actually more votes, Amy, than he got in the initial primary. The difference is it looks like all of that other vote consolidated behind Bill Ryan, which is not unusual in a write-in. If people perceive Rusty Clevenger as an incumbent, that vote he gets in the primary is just kind of the incumbent vote, and Bill Ryan has picked up everything else. The big one, he told me when we talked to him recently, he got an endorsement from Robert Cheeks, who was the third place finisher in that initial primary, and it looks like all of that Robert Cheeks vote went to Bill Ryan.
Yeah, and also many of the other candidates as well who got knocked out in that first round, but put their power and support behind Ryan as well. So it looks like what we've seen, basically all the votes consolidate and go behind Ryan. That's a big win, though. 73% is basically a mandate, and it would be probably hard for anyone who did a write-in to come up against that.
Extremely unlikely, and you're right. It is especially to beat somebody who has won multiple countywide elections before in Rusty Clevenger. So we're going to come back to this race because this is going to be the one that draws the most attention, Amy. But let's show you the other race we're tracking here.
A lot of people interested in this.
Let's check and see if these numbers are right too. Yeah, these do look updated here. So these are the latest numbers. This is Spartanburg County Council District 3, the runoff election there. I will say, Amy, as we look at these numbers, that's kind of impressive turnout for a primary runoff election for a county council seat.
Well, and it was amazing. So I did the forum on this last week, and it is all about growth in this area. This particular part of the county, people are really concerned about what's happening. And most of the questions that the Republican Party had me ask were completely focused on growth, because that's what they were hearing from their constituents. So this came down to Paul Abbott pretty much saying he's not for zoning, and Lynch saying maybe in certain cases, which is interesting. And also some people, I don't know, there was some conversation about, they're attorneys, because they introduced them as attorneys, but they are both business people as well. So they use their lawyering background to use in the business world. So anyway, it's very interesting to see how this is turning out. Again, it looks like Paul Abbott is going to be the winner. There's only 4 precincts, 97% of the vote in. But this was interesting because all night it was kind of a split, actually a little closer than this. And then it got into a horse race for just this little while. And now it's just widened out massively.
We've got a reporter covering this race as well.
Yep.
That is our Julia Keener. She is standing by, looks like at the county election office tonight. So Julia, we have been looking at the numbers in this race, and it does look like we have a winner here.
Yep, we are looking at the same numbers as you can see behind me, watching them as they come in live. Now, just like Amy said, this was a very tight race until just minutes ago, where you can see Paul Abbott took the lead by quite a bit. Now, what's interesting is here at the election headquarters, we're told with those 4 precincts that are left, it can't be more than a few hundred because they did not break the 25,000 threshold. So as you can see, that's more or less 400 votes to come in. We don't think that will make a huge difference in who wins this County Council District 3 seat. Now, we were at the St. John's precinct all afternoon, and we saw a steady flow of voters. We're told they were a little over 700, which we thought were interesting as we were talking to volunteers. That's about a voter per minute. So the turnout, as you all mentioned, for District 3 was huge. And that's a big deal because, as you can see with the way these numbers went throughout the night, every vote counts, and it was very tight.
Yeah, we said wow when you mentioned those turnout numbers, Julia. What is the reaction there at the election office to turnout out there today? Because I have to say, for a runoff primary, this is incredible turnout.
Yeah,
from
it
our
really is
perspective.
good.
Now, I spoke with John Balcom, the election registration, and he's over election.
Yeah, you have
Yeah,
you
got it.
Now, he yesterday said that they were voter registration and elections, yes, director. He said that they were expecting about the same number that they saw at the primary, which, as you can remember, was about 26,000. So he was not far off. He told me yesterday that early voting showed about 80% of the early voting they saw for the primary, which is impressive because it was less days. It was only August 13th through 15th. So I haven't spoken to them tonight, but I would assume that the reaction.
It sounds like we're losing your
We're having some glitches, but it's not your fault, and we appreciate all the perspective, especially that number you gave us about a voter a minute. I mean,
Yeah,
that
that's
is
incredible.
That is incredible. Julia, thanks.
Keener, we thank you for all that information. It's weird for people who are unfamiliar with some of the way the stream works and the way we're talking to these reporters. There's like a little bit of a delay between us saying something and the reporter hearing it, so she'll start to get a train of thought, and one of us will talk, and it
Throws her off.
It throws everybody off when they get into that. So I want to go back to the sheriff's race.
Yeah.
Amy, let's put that back up here, because the numbers are impressive, and I can tell you from talking to Bill Ryan, and I know you've talked to him somewhat recently as well, he was extremely confident going into election night tonight, not just from the extra endorsements he got. There's a lot of door knocking. I know Rusty Clevenger was knocking on a lot of doors as well, but extremely, extremely confident that he was going to win tonight. And he must have had a good sense of what was going on, because every time I refresh these numbers, he actually pulls ahead a little bit more.
Yeah, it is fascinating to see how many people it takes to decide a race like this too, right? I mean, think about 6,000 versus 18,000 in a county where there are 208,000 registered voters.
Right.
I mean, these are the moments where you remind people that your vote really matters, and that these are the folks that affect your life the most. These county council members, school board of education members, all these folks have so much of an impact on the roads, the policies, and everything that happens, our safety when it comes to the sheriff's race. And so to see how few people it takes to actually decide who leads is fascinating, and it should encourage people to get out there and vote.
It's also interesting. Look, we're having a special election because the previous sheriff, the longtime sheriff, resigned.
Yeah.
There is still investigation into what happened during near the end of Chuck Wright's tenure there at the sheriff's
Right.
office. And so you do hear Bill Ryan reiterating again and again. He just did it again when he was talking to Lauren Miller. People want a change.
Yep.
So he's positioned himself as the change candidate in this contest. And boy, election after election after election, it is amazing how the change candidate tends to win. So it's happened again here.
It has indeed. And, you know, we are still kind of refreshing our grid here, trying to get to the full 115 precincts, but we still are sitting at 111 with, just like Julia said, probably a couple of hundred votes left to count tonight. But it has been an interesting night, and I'm glad we scheduled ourselves for 9 o'clock, because it worked out that we pretty much had a full hand to look at and judge at this point as we came to you at 9 o'clock here on WSPA Plus. And of course, we've got a lot more coverage on the way tonight. We're going to hear from the candidates, from our reporters once again when you join us for the CW62 at 10 o'clock. We've got 7 News at 11 coming up as well. So there's lots to come, not just on WSPA Plus, but also on our main channel as well.
It's funny, I can see over your shoulder, Amy, the reporters are still out there reporting.
Yes.
And so I can see them gathering more information for those reports. I'll tell you what let's do. We have some time because we booked out this segment from 9 to 9:30 to give you this information, and then we got all the information right at once. So here's what I think we can do to provide some real value to people who have tuned in to join us here on our election special tonight. You heard Lauren say that Bill Ryan gave a very emotional speech as he was accepting this. Well, we can play some of that for you here. In fact, I'm going to play a lot of it for you here, because this is going to be the person most likely, very much most likely, who is the next sheriff of Spartanburg County. One more thing before I play it, Amy, a question that you had asked the reporters earlier. How long will it take after the special election? You know, for instance, you elect a president in November, they're not sworn in until January 20th. How long will it take to get this new sheriff in office? And the answer is almost immediately after that November election.
Right. A lot of people think November, and they think, oh, we have to wait till January, but this is a special election. They're trying to fill a seat that emptied early, and so they right away will swear in that candidate as soon as that candidate's available.
It's very likely Bill Ryan will be the Spartanburg County Sheriff by Thanksgiving this year. All right, to that point, we promised you an emotional acceptance speech from likely the new sheriff of Spartanburg County, Bill Ryan. Let's play that for you right now.
This minute. You know, first and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for being here. This is a little overwhelming. We weren't expecting this early. But, you know, I had a great conversation with Rusty just a little while ago. You know, as I said, everything's water under the bridge, and we're moving forward. You know, we've got to work together, and we've got to do what's best for Spartanburg County, and that's what we're going to do. You know, I just want to take the time. I don't have a script, but I want to make sure I keep myself on point tonight. You know, really and truly, first and foremost, and I had lunch with a really, really close friend today, and we were talking about it. And all too often in life, when we see people have big moments, the first thing they do is they say, I want to give all the glory to God. And then they forget what they said, and they move right on into what else is being said. I need to camp on this for just a minute. Because, in 2 weeks, it'll be the 6-year anniversary of going down of a complete type A aortic dissection at church. Within 48 hours of the time that I'd had that surgery, the doctors told me, you know, I'd never work again. They told me I'd never ride a motorcycle again. They told me I'd never hunt again. And but there's something that stood out in my mind in such a way that I'll never forget it as long as I'm here. And I apologize. You know, the doctor walked in and put his hand on my right shoulder that day, and he told me, he said, Bill, I don't know why you're here. And he said to me, he said, there's no medical explanation for why you're alive. And he said, God's got a special plan for your life. He said, because I did not save you. He said, God saved you. I just merely put you back together. From the time that we made a decision It's interesting how God places people in your life, and the people that He places in your life, and at the times that He puts them in your life. And, you know, when you make a decision to do this, and we've had 20 years of the same leadership within our county, and you know there's a lot of people that are coming, a lot of good men. Let me tell you this right now. There's a lot of good men who came out and ran. And I appreciate the relationships that I've been able to form with every single one of them. There'll be life-lasting relationships that I've made. But A buddy of mine told me one day, he said, Bill, you need one vote and one vote only in this election. He said, and if God gives you that vote, there's nothing any man can stop. My heart really got burdened in church back in October, long before we knew this, that I needed to run for sheriff. There's just something was put on my heart. And then our pastor, Mike Harder, I don't know if he's here or not. I can't see really good. Oh, there he is. I see him back there. You know, he was preaching on Nehemiah. And I woke up in the middle of the night one night. And it's funny how, you know, a lot of times we wake up at night, whether you realize it or not, you get things on your mind and you wonder what's on your mind and why it's on your mind. But the reality is real simple. God's waking you up to give you a message or tell you something that you may not know about. And that night he gave me a message, and I walked into my office and I wrote it down, and I just put, when God burdens your heart to do something, we have a responsibility to respond irregardless of what the outcome is. And Melanie and I were talking about it, and the reality is when Mike did the study on Nehemiah, his timing was perfect, because that's when I became very burdened to run, not knowing what was coming. Kevin Powers and I were having a conversation, and I said, man, I cannot stand the fact that I've got to wait to 28 to run. Little did I know, here we'd be tonight. I had no idea at that time that we were going to be where we're at. But I told Melanie, we were talking, I said, you know, we have to make a decision where we stand on that wall. Just like when Nehemiah was burdened to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild that wall, where was I going to stand? So we made that choice. From the minute that this election started, it has been unbelievable how God's hands have been on this election. It's been absolutely insane. We could not have performed like we performed based on our own abilities. I mean, and I'm not bringing any light to it, but just after the debate last week, we've had 142,000 views on that one video. You can't make stuff like that up. God's got his hands all over that. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands, man, nobody can deny the existence and the power that God has in our lives and how he weaves that perfect plan for your life. This is something that started in my heart over 28 years ago when I just met a man who told me I was going to be the sheriff of Spartanburg County one day. And here we are, 28 years later, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see where we're at right this minute, because there have been so many roadblocks put in my way. But man, he has paved the perfect path for where we're at right now. The relationships that I've gotten to make through this process, the people that I've gotten to meet through this process, as I said earlier, they're going to be lifelong relationships. So I just want to make sure that first and foremost that I give 1,000% of the glory to God, because the only reason I'm here right now is because God chose to put me here. I'm not supposed to be here, other than it was his will to keep me here. And I promise each and every one of you here that as long as I'm able to remain the sheriff here in Spartanburg County, I know I'm the Republican nominee, but you know, there's nobody running against me, so I'm sheriff-elect. So it is what it is at this point in time. So also I want to thank my family. My wife has been through it, let me tell you. She's been through it. It's been kind of... she's worked full-time at her job and come home every night and worked full-time at running this campaign with me. And, you know, they say behind every decent man there's a much greater woman. Well, it's 100%. Yeah. And I'm gonna tell a quick story. I'm a long talker. I'll try to get this as quick as I can. But if anybody watched my testimony, I told them that night, you better call your wives and text them. You're gonna be a little late. But I'm not gonna do that to you. But you know, somebody said something to me talking about having a good family behind you. And I'm not trying to put him on the spot, but he's been a tremendous asset to the campaign. He's given us just unbelievable support. But Boogie Cash, Danny Cash, back there in the back. And I'll get to those here in just a moment, but Danny walked up to me at church. He didn't know me from anybody. He just heard I was running for sheriff, and he walked up to me and he asked me, he said, "Are you Bill Ryan?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And when a man like Big asks you what your name is, you tell him. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now. And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "You know, you running for sheriff?" I was like, "Yeah." He says, "You know, I got 2 daughters." And he said, "They mean everything to me. I'd do anything for my daughters." And he had watched my testimony, and he said, not only did God trust you with one great woman, he said, God trusted you with 2 great women. And he said, not only did God trust you with 2 great women, he gave you a daughter on top of that when my wife and I got married. He said, if God's going to trust you with 3 women, I can trust you with my money, and I'm going to support you 100%. But Boogie and I have become very close on a completely different level at this point in time, and we'll be lifelong friends forever. There's no question about that. All the volunteers, there's so many of you in here that have volunteered to help us. I cannot call every single one of you out by name. There's so many of you in here. I just appreciate all the support that you guys have given us. You know, I have to thank the voters, man. I mean, they got out, they showed out today. Woo. Nobody could have predicted that. I mean, some of y'all think you did, but I wasn't predicting that. I was just hoping for 50 plus 1. That's all I was concerned with tonight when it came right down to it. You know, you don't become a good leader without being surrounded by good leaders throughout your career. And there's many guys that are here tonight that have been in my supervision chain throughout. Keith Stafford's here. Russell Lynch is here. I don't know who else. I've got Michael Warren's here. Michael Warren's walked through some of my hardest times with me when I lost Mandy in 2010. Sat on my front porch, the support that they gave me. But I cannot name all the supervisors that have worked in my life that have put me where I'm at here, that have all poured into me. And, you know, I've only had really one bad supervisor in my life, but you know what? I learned a lot from him. I learned what not to do to my people when it comes right down to it. And I won't call him out, but, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, I want to thank the community in general. The community's really kind of rallied around me in so many of these events that we've been to recently. And my campaign team has been unbelievable. Where's my team at? Where is Evan? And I can't see y'all with all the lights, but Evan and Taylor. There's Taylor over here, Taylor Hall, and Evan Newman. He's the really short guy in the back.
Sorry, I got to lean over here to do that. That is Bill Ryan accepting the Republican nomination for Spartanburg County Sheriff tonight, winning in a landslide, let's call it that, in a landslide runoff election.
Absolute landslide. The current coroner, who was his challenger, will continue on in his work as far as we know, and that is the way things finish on that race. And of course, the county council race, it became pretty tight, but it looks like Paul Abbott is going to walk away with this. A big change in the numbers late in the game, with almost 60% of the vote for Paul Abbott, and Jason Lynch pulling in about 40% of the vote.
Yeah, that's just about literally every precinct counted. There's 2 left, but not enough that's going to change the outcome of this. So we'll say Paul Abbott Jr. will be the Republican nominee for that Spartanburg County Council District 3 runoff. There are a Democrat and Forward Party candidate in that race as well, so we will have a November contest for Spartanburg County Council District 3, and it does look like, at least for now, that Bill Ryan will be very likely be the next Spartanburg County Sheriff, barring a very surprising runoff campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching our very special election coverage here tonight on WSPA+. That is Amy Wood. I'm Gordon Dill, and we thank you for watching.